Hi and welcome back to my channel. In today's video you have my November wrap-up and my December TBR. Couple things before I get started with the wrap-up portion. First off, this video is going to kick off my attempt at a sort of vlogmas. It's not going to be every day, but it is going to be more videos than I normally post. And secondly, I did film the December TBR at a different time and I think in a different place. I can't even remember. Now to the wrap-up portion. And even though, yes, I did read 39 books this month, this hopefully will not take very long because I'm not going to go into detail. Instead, if I remember, I'm going to link all of my vlogs for these books. And November is probably going to be a high reading month for me from now on because I really like the idea of reading through various Goodreads categories for the Goodreads Choice Awards, and those come out in November. That sentence did not come out how I had planned, but I'm going to keep it in. Let's talk about some statistics. First off, there's that big number, 39 books. And I'm very pleased with that number, although I thought I could get more than that. I don't know why I thought that. I work for a living and I have to sleep and eat and I also run. But anyway, that is one more than last November. So that's a win. I don't know if I'll be able to keep it up or what I'll be tackling in November of 2024, but we'll leave that for a year from now. Some of my other statistics. I did have a goal, NaNoWriMo, of trying to read 15,000 pages. At the beginning of the month, I optimistically thought 20,000. I don't know why. I thought I could possibly get that amount. That's unreasonable, especially because I work for a living. 15,000 is around 500 pages a day, and I'm including audiobook pages into that because physically I could not do that. But I did make that goal. So the average page count of the books that I was reading was 393, and I think that did probably explain why I didn't read as many more books as I thought I would, because I was listening to even more audiobooks and on faster speed than last year, but a lot of them, as you will see, were quite long. As far as most read genre, obviously fantasy. I'm reading through 2 fantasy categories, but the number 2 genre this month is memoir. It's becoming a favorite genre of mine. And books with rep, 26. So 26 out of 39 is not quite the percentage that I would like. And I think that does reflect on the types of books chosen for these different awards categories and whether they have rep or not. As far as authors read from before, I still managed 16 authors that I've read from before, but there were a lot of new authors this month. Format, I read only 11 books physically. Yes, I've been doing a lot with audiobooks because I can multitask. I do enjoy that. As you will see, I read 26 books via audiobook. One was mixed media, and that was Malice because I switched from physical to audiobook. And then I did read one as an ebook, and that was Bookshops and Bone Dust because that was the only way that I could get a hold of it. As far as my star rating breakdown, I did take out the 11. Actually, if I look at that, these numbers are slightly off. That 3.79 average, it is slightly off because I took out 10. I counted 10 books, but it looks like I have actually logged 11 memoirs, and I do not rate memoirs. So my average is just a little bit higher, but it's lower than previous months because so many of the books that I've read for the fantasy and young adult fantasy categories have been 3.5 star reads. So many of them. Thankfully, none lower than that. I don't think I had any 3-star reads from those particular books. I did have 3 3-star reads this month. But then if you look, I have 8 3.5 star reads and 10 4-star reads. So 4-star reads are good. Like they'll stay in my collection in my library if I've owned them. I won't seek those out to purchase them, but if I already own them, I'll keep them in my library. I had only 4 4.5 stars and only 3 5 stars And one of those wasn't even a book that I read for the Goodreads Choice Awards list, which is pretty interesting. There are 12 series that I started. Few of those I have DNF'd. If they were some of the 3.5-star read books, like The Scarlet Veil by Shelby Mahurin, I DNF'd those series. So that's not adding too much to that list. I did continue 3 series and finish 3 series. That's pretty good on a month when I'm reading things that are on a list like the Goodreads Choice Awards, where most of them are going to be first books in series. And then I just wanted to show how I acquired them. 24 out of the 39 I got from the library. I'm very privileged to have access to so many different libraries, as well as a relatively decent local library. Without that, there's no way I could complete this challenge. No way at all. So let's take a look at the books that I have read this month. I have 3 stacks over here, very large stacks because, again, 39 books in 1 month. One of the stacks are the books that I read before the nominees came out and were not also nominees. If I read them in the first half of the month and they ended up becoming nominees, I have them in those respective stacks. So let's take a look at the ones that I read there. We have Her Majesty's Royal Coven. I read this thinking that Shadow Cabinet might be on the list. It was not. I believe that was a 4-star read. Then I read Ninth House, thinking that Hellbent would be on the list. It was. This, I believe, was actually a very high 4-star or a 4.5-star read. Then we have my favorite book of the month. Ooh, I've had 2 really good books of the month because I just remembered The Will of the Many. They've tied. I don't know. They're both really, really good. Discord of Gods by Jen Lyons. This is finishing off a series. This is a series that I started on my 10 series to start in 2023. I've started and finished it in the same year. Then we have Malice. I don't remember what I rated this. I think it ended up 3.5 stars. I am going to keep it in my collection and I'm going to try to give it another shot at a later date. This was the last of those 10 series that I needed to start. I also had 2 memoirs. One was published before this year, and that is The Beauty and the Breaking by Michelle Harper. This is one of the books that I was trying to use to participate in Nonfiction November. And then we also have Beautiful Country. This memoir was published this year. Okay, now we're going to go through the books that I read this month as part of my Goodreads Choice Awards projects. I'm going to briefly mention the books that I do not have physically before I get into each category. And as I show each book, I am not going to give a synopsis, but I am going to talk about these in order of least liked to most liked in each category, except for the memoir. I did not bother sorting those. We're going to start with the young adult category, and I had 2 books in that category that I do not have physically. One is The Scarlet Veil by Shelby Mahurin, and the other is Bring Me Your Midnight. And I forget the author of that one. Both of those were fairly middling to me. So in order of least liked to most liked, and I'm not going to show my most liked book in this category because of the ongoing boycott of Wednesday Books. Well, St. Martin's Press. Wednesday Books is an imprint of it. Anyway, we have least liked of this category, A Study in Drowning, These Infinite Threads, which was disappointing, and that's the reason why it's so low on my preference list. Foulheart Huntsman. At this point, these are decent books. They're in the 4-star range. Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. Song of Silver, Flame Like Night. The Stolen Heir. I liked this one more than I expected. Then we have Blood Debts. Again, this is an ARC copy of the book. Threads That Bind. And then the one that's going to get my vote, which I am not going to show or promote or review, which drives me bonkers because it's such an amazing book. So that's young adult fantasy. This month, I ended up reading 11 of the books on the list, which not too shabby for most of those being read in the second half of the month. 2 of those I did read in the first half of the month. Now to adult fiction. Of the adult fiction that I do not have physically, it's just Bookshops and Bone Dust. I did enjoy that one, nowhere near as much as Legends and Lattes. In order from least liked to most liked, unfortunately we have Last Tale of the Flower Bride. That one's getting on hold. Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. This is the worst of the 3 Greek myth retellings. Yes, 3 that were on the list. Then we start the middling books, and we have Victory City by Salman Rushdie, Clytemnestra by Costanza Casati. That one wasn't too bad. The best of the Greek myth retellings, however, is Atalanta. I may actually purchase this one. One that confused me, but I didn't end up minding as much, especially thinking back on it, is The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. We have The Unmaking of June Farrow. This was so much all about the atmosphere, and I really enjoyed that atmosphere. Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. This would have been higher if it had been anything close to Ninth House. Venko by Sherry Demulane. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. And the best book that I have read for this project, The Will of the Many by James Isington. I need to get myself a copy of this. Lastly, we have all of the memoirs that I have read this month for the project. One of the ones that I've read for this project I read way earlier in the year, and that was Spare. But of these, I do not have one physically, and that is Counting the Cost by Jill Duggar Seawold. Can't remember her last name. Anyway, the one that I read before the project started is While You Were Out by Meg Kissinger. This book is amazing. I have learned so much in all of these. I have Thicker Than Water by Kerry Washington, Paris, the memoir by Paris Hilton, Becoming Free Indeed by Ginger Duggar Bruolo. If I had to put one at the bottom of what I've read this far, I would put that. Not because it's poorly written, because it's not really a memoir. A Living Remedy by Nicole Chung. You Can Make This Place Beautiful by Maggie Smith. Love Pamela by Pamela Anderson. And All My Knotted Up Life by Beth Moore. That one unexpectedly made the second round. I did not expect that one to make the second round. Okay, so plans for December. They're going to be less ambitious, slowing down my reading. I mean, it's not going to be all that difficult to slow down my reading after November with 39, almost 40 books read, as you saw in the previous portion. I do have still several Goodreads Choice Awards books to read. By the time this video goes up, I may have read some of these. The first thing, though, that I'm going to talk about are the books that are not on that list, any of those lists that I plan to read, but that'll be after I get through the actual voting period for the Goodreads Choice Awards. I'm going to start with the books that I bumped from my November TBR because I didn't get to them in time before the Goodreads Choice Awards came out. And that's my first, my Buzzwordathon book, one of the good ones. This is the November Buzzwordathon book. I ended up reading the December book because that was Song of Silver, Flame Like Night, and I think that was like music or sound words. I ended up reading that in November, so I'm just switching these. Then we have a 23 and 23 book with The Gilded Wolves, and I read one of my 23 and 23 books. I had 23 total, so November was the month with just one of them. And then this is not fulfilling any particular category, but I had it on my list and I want to read it. And that is My Body by Emily Ratajkowski. I think I pronounced that correctly. Then we get to the books that for my lists, the last ones that I need to finish. I've started all of the series on that list, and I have obviously talked about my Buzzwordathon book. So the last thing I have left are my 23 and 23 books. The first one of those is Sanctuary by Paula Mendoza and Abby Sher. And then I saved the biggest one for last, and one that I have high hopes for, and that is Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wong. If I like this, I'm definitely going to get her newest book that came out this year. And then the other one that I have that is not part of this, want to finish a series. This is a brand new to my collection book, Defiant by Brandon Sanderson. This is the conclusion to the Skyward series. I'm excited and nervous about this one. Okay, so the rest of the books that I'm going to briefly talk about are my Goodreads Choice Awards books. The ones that I don't feel necessarily compelled at all to try to finish by the time that the awards go up, which will be only a few days after this video goes up, are the memoirs. I definitely want to still read all of them, but I'm having a little bit of difficulty getting a hold of some of them. So I can push those through later in the month if I need to. 4 of them I do not have physically. 2 of them I think I have access to on ebook. 2 of them I'm working on getting access to. One of those is The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. I should have put it on the hold list. The reason I didn't is because it's available on Scribd, but I've been having issues with accessing Scribd this month. Of all the months to have issues accessing it, not helpful. So I didn't put it on any holds list at libraries, and of course they're months long. So I probably will not get to that one until the end of the month because we had to update the billing, and the billing cycle doesn't roll over until the 22nd. Long story short, I'm going to get to that one this month, but Scribd, don't advertise yourselves as unlimited if you let 3 books only. That's not unlimited, FYI. The other ones are ones that did not make the final round. I have read a lot in the final round though. So we have A Man of Two Faces. I also have the book that he is most famous for, The Sympathizer, on my TBR shelf back there. Then we have The Witching Year and The In-Between. Those are the ones that I do not have physically. The ones that I have physically are Page Boy by Elliot Page, Tell Me Everything by Minka Kelly, Hijab Butch Blues by Lamia H, and How to Save Babylon by Safia Sinclair. So those are the memoirs. Of the fantasy categories, I'm actually doing really, really well. I have only 4 left of both of them. One of them though, I might not end up reading because it's fantasy romance and I don't feel like trying super hard to get a hold of this book because I don't think that I'll read it well at all. And that is Powerless. That's on the young adult fantasy list. I'm having a lot of difficulty getting a hold of it. So I might not end up reading that one, and that's one obviously that I don't have physically. The others I do have physically, although I am trying to get audiobook versions if I can, and that is A Curse for True Love, House of Marion, and What the River Knows. So if I don't end up reading Powerless, there's only 3 left on that list, and that's pretty good. As far as the adult fantasy goes, I have 1 book that I don't have physically yet. Still waiting on that to arrive. I'm hoping that it's just shipping delays because of the holidays and that I didn't accidentally skip it. I don't think I did. And that is Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. And then we have Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare, A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. By the time this video goes up, I may have read this because this is the next book that I'm starting on audiobook. And then Inkblood, Sister Scribe. That's still, even though I'm backing off a bit, that's still a lot of books. But coming off of a nearly 40 book month, I'm taking it easy. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.